They believed that an image could hold you, that a photo could become a doorway into your life, your breath, your future. They focused on your face, your eyes, your presence frozen in time, thinking that by targeting the image they could bypass the protection surrounding you. In many traditions, a photo is seen as a spiritual anchor, a symbolic extension of the soul, and that is exactly why they chose it. They whispered words over it, projected intention into it, layered it with envy, resentment, and fear, assuming that what they sent would travel directly to you. What they did not understand is that intention does not move freely when divine authority is involved. When a chosen one is targeted, the energy sent does not arrive unchanged. It is examined, weighed, and redirected by forces far older and stronger than human will. The moment the curse was released, something unexpected happened. Instead of attaching to you, it collided with the protection already active around your life. Divine protection is not loud. It does not announce itself. It does not need dramatic signs to exist. It functions like a mirror wrapped in fire. Anything sent with destructive intent is reflected back, not as punishment, but as truth. The energy they projected carried their own spiritual signature, their unresolved wounds, their hidden darkness. When it failed to find access to you, it turned inward. What they felt afterward was confusion, heaviness, sudden fatigue, emotional collapse, or an unexplained unraveling in their own lives. They mistook this for coincidence, never realizing they were standing inside the echo of their own actions. For you, the experience may have felt very different. You might not have known when it happened. You may not have seen signs or felt fear. Instead, there may have been a strange calm, a quiet release, or a sense that something heavy had lifted without explanation. That is often how divine reversal works. It does not always come with warning. Sometimes it comes as peace where anxiety should have been, clarity where confusion once lived, or distance from people who no longer have access to your energy. The curse never reached your spirit. It could not attach to your path. Instead, it activated a cleansing process that removed what no longer belonged in your life. This reversal is not accidental. Chosen ones carry a frequency that exposes intention. When someone attempts to manipulate, control, or spiritually attack you, they unknowingly step into a test of alignment. Their intention reveals whether they are operating in light or shadow. The divine response is automatic. There is no debate, no delay. The energy is returned to its source in a form that cannot be denied. This is why some people fall apart after trying to harm you. This is why relationships collapse, plans fail, and masks slip. It is not because you did anything. It is because they touched what was protected. The photo they cursed became evidence, not a weapon. It marked the moment their hidden intentions were brought into the open realm. Even if you never confront them, even if no words are exchanged, the spiritual record has already been written. You were covered. They were exposed. This is the danger of targeting someone chosen. The attack does not weaken the chosen one. It accelerates their separation from anything false. What they intended as sabotage becomes confirmation that you are moving correctly, that your light is visible enough to threaten those who benefit from darkness. Divine reversal does not always look like justice in human terms. Sometimes it looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like distance. Sometimes it looks like the attacker slowly losing influence, relevance, or stability while you remain untouched. The power lies in the imbalance. You continue forward, unaware, protected, while they wrestle with consequences they cannot trace back to a single moment. This is how the universe maintains order without chaos. You are not required to defend yourself when the defense is already built into your assignment. There is a reason you were not meant to know immediately. Awareness comes after safety. Understanding follows protection. If you are hearing this now, it is because the reversal is complete. The thread has passed. The energy has returned to where it originated. What remains is clarity. You are still standing. Your path is intact. Your spirit is undisturbed. The image they tried to use against you never belonged to them in the first place. It was never a doorway into your life. It was a reminder that no matter how intentional the attack, it cannot override what has already been divinely sealed, activated, and guarded beyond human reach, moving forward while unseen forces continue to rearrange outcomes in your favor, shifting timelines quietly as you remain centered in purpose and untouched by what was never meant to reach you. What they wanted was an ending. Their intention was not just to slow you down, but to erase you from a version of reality where you were becoming too strong, too aware, too untouchable. When people operate from fear, they aim at permanence. They want finality. They want to believe that if something is destroyed completely, it will never rise again. But what they never accounted for is that chosen ones do not exist on a single timeline. You move through layers of purpose, seasons of becoming, and versions of self that are constantly shedding and renewing. When an attack is launched against you, it does not always meet the version of you that exists in the present moment. Often, it strikes something that is already leaving. What truly died was not you, but a version of your life that had already served its purpose. An old identity, a past attachment, a season of limitation, a pattern of silence or self-doubt that you had unknowingly outgrown. The energy that was sent could not attach to your future, so it clung to what was fading anyway. That is why the aftermath may have felt like loss before it felt like freedom. You may have noticed sudden endings, people disappearing without explanation, doors closing that you once begged to stay open. It may have felt abrupt, even painful, but it was not destruction. It was separation. The timeline that held pain, confusion, and delay was collapsing so that another could take its place. This is how spiritual protection often manifests. It does not always shield you from change. Sometimes it accelerates it. What is no longer aligned cannot survive the pressure of an attack meant for someone who has already moved beyond that frequency. The curse, the ill intent, the manipulation became a catalyst. It forced the old to break apart quickly rather than linger slowly. In that sense, what was meant to harm you actually spared you time. It shortened a season that would have drained you further had it been allowed to continue naturally. You may have questioned why things ended the way they did. Why certain relationships dissolved without closure. Why familiar routines suddenly felt empty or irrelevant. Why the life you once recognized no longer felt like home. This was not a punishment. It was a release. The timeline that ended carried lessons you had already learned. Keeping it alive would have required you to shrink, to compromise your awareness, to ignore the growth that was already happening within you. The attack merely revealed what could not come with you into what was next. Those who wished for your downfall assumed that ending something in your life would equal your defeat. They did not understand that endings are sacred to those who are guided. Death, in this context, is not failure. It is transition. It is the closing of a chapter that has already fulfilled its role. You were not meant to remain in that space. The fact that it ended suddenly was a sign of alignment, not loss. What dies in the presence of a chosen one's protection is never the chosen one themselves. It is whatever cannot survive the elevation that is taking place. There is a reason you survived without breaking. Even if you felt shaken, you did not collapse. Even if you grieved, you continued. Even if you questioned everything, something within you remained steady. That steadiness is the evidence. The timeline that ended did not hold your core. It held circumstances, connections, and structures that were built for a previous version of you. Once they were removed, your spirit had more room to breathe. Your clarity sharpened. Your discernment deepened. Your tolerance for what once felt normal began to disappear. This is why looking back now may feel strange. What once felt urgent now feels distant. What once felt devastating now feels necessary. The dead body in this story is symbolic. It represents the end of a life that was no longer meant to continue in its existing form. It represents the burial of confusion, limitation, and misplaced loyalty. The attackers thought they were burying you. In reality, they assisted in the burial of what you were never meant to carry forward. You did not walk away empty-handed. You carried wisdom, strength, and awareness into the next timeline. What ended made room. What collapsed cleared space. What died fertilized what was coming. This is the hidden power of divine reversal. It does not just protect. It transforms. It uses even harmful intent as fuel for alignment. When someone tries to end you and fails, something else must end instead. The universe does not waste energy. It redirects it. And in your case, it redirected it toward evolution, severing the past cleanly, closing loops that no longer served, dissolving attachments that had overstayed their purpose, and ushering you forward into a reality that could only exist once the old one was laid to rest, leaving you standing in the space between what was and what is becoming, aware that survival was never the goal, but transformation was always the assignment. There is a kind of protection that does not announce itself when it arrives. It does not interrupt events or warn you ahead of time. It allows situations to unfold just enough for truth to surface. When God's protection surrounds a chosen one, it does more than block harm. It reveals intention. It brings what is hidden into the light without you having to search for it. Those who move against you often believe they are invisible, that their thoughts, envy, and quiet resentment are buried too deep to be noticed. But divine protection has a way of creating pressure that forces masks to crack. Under that pressure, people reveal who they are through their actions, their reactions, and their sudden shifts in behavior. You may have noticed how certain people changed around you without explanation. Support turned into silence. Familiar warmth became discomfort. Questions replaced encouragement. This was not random. When protection activates, it alters the spiritual environment around you. Those aligned with you feel steady. Those operating with hidden motives feel exposed, even if you never accuse them. The exposure happens internally first. They feel uneasy in your presence. They sense that they can no longer access you the way they once did. What they used to take, influence, or manipulate no longer flows freely. This discomfort pushes them to act out, withdraw, or reveal themselves through subtle betrayals and contradictions. God's protection does not require confrontation to expose an enemy. Often, it simply removes your blindness. You begin to notice patterns you once ignored. Comments that once seemed harmless now feel loaded. Actions that once confused you suddenly make sense. This is discernment sharpening. You are not becoming suspicious, you are becoming clear. The protection around you filters perception. It helps you see people as they are, not as you hoped they would be. This is one of the most powerful forms of safety because it prevents future harm by removing access in the present. As enemies are exposed, something else is happening simultaneously. Your destiny is being sealed. Sealing does not mean restriction. It means confirmation. It means that certain paths are no longer negotiable. Certain delays are no longer allowed. When protection reaches this level, interference becomes ineffective. Attempts to derail you fail before they fully form. Plans made against you collapse due to internal conflict among those involved. Opportunities meant for you begin to bypass obstacles without explanation. This is not luck. This is alignment locking into place. Sealing also brings separation. Some people cannot follow you into what is next, not because they are evil, but because their role was limited to a season. Others are removed because their intentions were never pure. Protection does not discriminate emotionally. It removes whoever threatens the integrity of your assignment. This can feel isolating at first. The circle becomes smaller. Familiar support structures dissolve. But what replaces them is stability. You begin to move without resistance. Decisions feel cleaner. Progress feels quieter but more consistent. Hidden enemies often reveal themselves when they realize they have lost influence. They may attempt to provoke a reaction, stir confusion, or create doubt. But by the time this happens, the seal is already in place. Their actions no longer reach you the same way. You may observe rather than react. You may feel detached rather than wounded. This emotional distance is not coldness. It is protection manifesting as maturity. You are no longer required to defend your path to those who were never meant to walk it with you. The sealing of destiny also means that certain lessons are complete. You are no longer tested by the same patterns. What once triggered you now passes through without effect. This is evidence that growth has occurred. Protection reinforces growth by ensuring you do not repeat cycles that would slow you down. When something tries to pull you backward, it feels unnatural, uncomfortable, and quickly collapses. Forward movement becomes the default state. God's protection works in layers. First, it shields. Then it reveals. Finally, it establishes. By the time you realize what has been happening, the work is already done. Enemies are no longer close enough to interfere. Distractions lose their appeal. Fear loses its authority. You begin to operate with quiet confidence, not because everything is perfect, but because nothing essential is threatened anymore. What is meant for you is guarded. What is not meant for you cannot stay. You were never meant to fight every battle. Some battles are won by removal, not resistance. Some victories come through silence, not confrontation. The exposure of hidden enemies is not for punishment. It is for protection. It ensures that only what is aligned can remain near you as your purpose unfolds. Destiny requires space. It requires clarity. It requires the absence of interference. The seal provides all three. As you move forward, you may notice that doors open without struggle. That guidance comes easily. That intuition speaks louder than fear. This is not because opposition no longer exists, but because opposition no longer has access. The difference is subtle but profound. You are not untouched by the world, you are unreachable by what seeks to derail you. The seal does not make you invisible. It makes you untouchable in the ways that matter. Those who were exposed will fade into irrelevance. Their opinions will lose weight. Their presence will no longer shape your decisions. You may still remember them, but without emotional charge. This neutrality is the final stage of protection. It signals completion. You are no longer entangled. Your energy is your own. Your path is clear. Your destiny is not a question mark anymore. It is an active process unfolding step by step, guarded, confirmed, and carried forward by forces that do not require your constant vigilance, only your willingness to keep moving in alignment, trusting that what has been sealed cannot be undone, that what has been revealed cannot be hidden again, and that what has been set in motion is already rearranging outcomes ahead of you in ways you may not yet see but will soon recognize as unmistakably intentional.